Capital One's nerfing the Venture X card, but is it justified? Today we're looking into changes, what I think is happening behind the scenes, and whether the card still makes sense. Big favor before we dive into everything is to hit the like button to help with the algorithm. If you know someone that might benefit, then share this with them. Okay, starting with the announcement, Capital One sent a pretty major email. The main idea is that they want to have a best-in-class airport lounge experience, but since lounges have grown in popularity, wait times to enter are now a big problem. There is a lot to unpack here, and we'll get more into it in the middle. In order to address this, they are making lounge access changes for additional cardholders and also guesting. You, as the primary cardholder, are not affected by this, and for some people, it might be a good change. Beginning February 1st, 2026, additional cardholders will not automatically have airport lounge access. They're not fully being left out in the cold though. You, as the primary cardholder, can pay an annual lounge access fee of $125 per additional cardholder for them to maintain lounge access. So this will be for Capital One lounges, landings, and also priority pass lounges. If you don't care about this lounge stuff, then they can still keep the authorized user card with no impact and no additional fee. I'll give props to Capital One that they were pretty good with the notification. As of filming, you have a good 7 months of notice, and if you do wish to add lounge access, then that option will begin February 1st, 2026. So that's authorized users, but guesting is also affected. Beginning February 1st, 2026, guests will no longer receive complimentary access to priority pass lounges. You still can bring guests in, but at a rate of $35 for each visit. Unless that person's drinking a ton, and I don't mean Coke, then it's probably not worth it. It might make sense for some lounges in Asia, but not in the US. We're pretty much seeing exactly the same thing for Capital One's own lounges, also with a February 1st, 2026 start date. Main difference with these ones is that you can spend your way to guest access, so $75K across your Venture X card per calendar year to get 2 guests. As of filming, the spend portion does not seem to affect or impact Priority Pass. Also note that the spend requirement is valid for the calendar year that it's met and the following calendar year. So if you hit the spend for 2025, then you get the whole benefit for 2026. Note that you can still bring in guests for Capital One lounges at $45 per guest per visit. For kids between 2 and 17, they're going to cost $25, and children under 2 are free. Obviously not a good change, but I think a lot of us who have been in the space for a while knew that it was bound to happen. The card came out in November 2021, and it was pretty overpowered. Kind of going viral off that lounge benefit, making it S tier, and overpowered. I kind of expected it to last 3 years. November 2021 to February 2026 would be 4 years and 3 months, which is pretty long. One of the most obvious questions is whether the Venture X card still makes sense, whether you should keep it, cancel it, or do something else. It really depends. So first off, I'd recommend running your numbers based off your spend and how many miles you'd earn. More importantly though, I'd look at the other benefits and if you derive value from them, since a lot of the other no annual fee options, the opportunity cost, might not have those. If you want to check your numbers, I'll link to it down below, or Google Venture X worth it ask Sebby, and it should pop up. For a lot of people, I think it is still pretty serviceable. It kind of feels like Tom Brady or LeBron James. For LeBron, there was the 2009 solo carry of the Cavs, the 2013 Miami Heat's run, the 2016 Cavs run, arguably the 2020 bubble Lakers as well. Those were his peaks, but he's still good, he's still serviceable. It's not like he's Klay Thompson. As long as the annual fee stays at $395, you're looking at a break even and arguably a keeper card if you value miles for premium travel. You also have good multipliers for Capital One travel and as a catch-all. That's ignoring the travel protections and lounge benefits for yourself, which might now be even better with less people. Your mileage may vary, but still a good deal in my book. On a side note, if you want to learn about cards, whether the Venture X or one of their competitors, and you want to support the channel, we have links on the website asksebby.com and also down below in the description box. Make sure the links are competitive, but otherwise, it's a huge way to help, so thank you in advance. Okay, back to the Venture X, who wins and who loses. The winners are going to be solo travelers, because you don't care, or group travelers, but where everyone has their own card. So for example, a lot of people I know, when we end up traveling together, everyone has their own cards anyways, and sometimes even multiple, so it doesn't really matter if there's guesting. The other winners are high spenders and also business owners, but there is an opportunity cost there. The people who lose are definitely couples who can't justify having their own cards. For those people, you're pretty much being forced to pay an extra $125. Another group would be families who, let's say, added their parents or their adult kids as authorized users. Before, that made a ton of sense because there was no additional cost and they were getting lounge benefits. That group now has a decision to make. Is it worth paying that additional $125 to get them access compared to maybe paying $45 per visit for adults or $25 per guest under 17 and over 2? For adults, the math is $125 divided by 45, So if you do more than 3 visits or equal to 3 visits for Capital One lounges and landings, then you're better off paying the $125. If you're only doing a visit, then just pay the $45. The other option, especially for couples, is for them to get their own card. Again, for most people, if you travel once or twice a year, then you're probably going to come out ahead with the credits as well as the anniversary bonus. Even if you don't and you discount these, it probably still makes more sense to do this rather than eat the $125. It's also a weird chicken egg situation because if you value lounges, if you travel at all, then these credits aren't hard to use. If you don't travel, then by definition, lounge benefits don't matter, so this doesn't make sense. One other group that might win are going to be other banks. Main idea being that their cards, at least as of right now, have priority pass guesting. At the same time, one of the ones where you can break even or it could be a keeper card, you might not really like the credits and it very much depends on you. If you don't live in a major city and you don't use any of their partners or the ones that they think you would use, then it's not going to make sense. I think they're fine. I get value above the annual fee and I have multiple of them, but for example, my parents would never have it because it doesn't make sense. Okay, but why is Capital One doing this? There's a few obvious ones on what they're saying, but also secondary factors. The first one is wait times and crowding. It ends up being a lose-lose because no one's happy. You as a user aren't happy, so you're not an advocate, and there's a chance that you don't retain the card. On their end, if they have a benefit that's not resonating, that's not marketing well, then it doesn't help them. The second reason, and the one that people aren't thinking about, is the cost. So it does depend on the deal, but the idea is that the banks are bulk buying visits on a per card basis. For example, let's say they're paying $15 per card for all their cards, rationale being that there's a lot of people who might not use any benefits, and then there's some that will use a lot. Think of it like insurance, where you have a lot of people, but not everyone does claims. But for the people that do a lot of claims, they're the ones increasing the cost, and you kind of have to figure out how to deal with that. If you see the whole portfolio, so everyone increasing their claims though, then cost of insurance has to go up. So maybe now instead of charging $15 to Capital One per card, maybe it's $45 or maybe it's $100 if there's that many people guesting. Maybe the only way they could keep that $15 number is with no guesting. This pretty much puts Capital One in a weird spot where they can keep the features, but then increase the annual fee and the cost for everyone, which might piss people off. The other option being to cut the benefits, which is what we're seeing. Main idea is that I wouldn't be surprised if this whole change is due to their contract with Priority Pass, let's say being 4 years and now being renegotiated and the cost increasing by a lot because everyone's guesting everyone in. You can kind of see how Capital One's juggling this too because with their new change, they're also incentivizing spend. Most credit card companies and banks make their money from credit cards with spend, with swipes. It's less about getting normal people to overspend and more about moving whales over from competitors to Capital One. Think about people that spend $18K per month or $50K or $60K or business owners who spend $100K a month. On the top end of credit cards, whales drive a lot of value. On the bottom end, it's about increasing the number of cardholders. So think about that couple that had one card and now they're getting 2 cards instead because the math works better. Even if you do fully use the credits, they're still making something back because you're going through Capital One Travel. The reason these banks are willing to give so much for the travel portals is that they get a lot of money back as well. One other consideration is that credit cards are not really the most profitable for banks, especially people that use all the benefits and all the perks in micro-optimized categories. You do have people that don't even know about features and who put all their spend on 1xPack cards, but those tend to be more brand cachet picks. So you either get a bunch of people that don't use the benefits, or you end up cross-selling. Cross-selling basically means to have people move their brokerage accounts, bank accounts over, or get mortgages or loans through them instead of competitors. Consider how many people hated Capital One before or thought it was only for subprime, but with this card, they actually sign up for it because it was that good. And now these people have a warm lead, there's rapport, and you're more likely to get their bank accounts. Even if Capital One was beneath you before, that might not feel like the case now because you have their card. But yeah, lots of factors in play, and my main guess would be less crowding and more economics of the card than anything else. It was either raise fees or cut benefits, and they went with the latter. A fast one, but a question I expect to come up is whether it's worth spending $75K on the card for guesting. First off, I consider what airport you're based out of and how often you go through it. As of filming, Capital One only has lounges in Dallas-Fort Worth, Denver, and DC. That's a pretty small footprint, and if you don't go through those places, then it doesn't matter. To be fair, the Venture X card is not a bad catch-all because you're getting 2x miles back on everything, which is solid. For a lot of people in that camp though, you might also be chasing status or free nights with hotel cards. So for example, the Hilton cards have free nights with spend for some of them, and airline ones offer elite status if you spend enough on their cards. It is a bit more of a rabbit hole, but I have talked about a lot of this stuff over on the Ask Sebby business channel since it is more business oriented or people that spend a ton oriented. Lots of interesting options. Main ones would be Hyatt, Hilton, Delta, American, and United. One final note, but even with the change, you might still run into crowded lounges with Capital One depending on when you travel. I think for a lot of other times, it's going to fix the issue, but if you travel during busy times, it doesn't matter. If you're traveling during holidays like Thanksgiving or Christmas, it doesn't matter what they do because there's so many people traveling. They're not optimizing towards the maximum peak, they're optimizing towards baseline normal. Another factor is when you fly, so day of week and time of your flight. You pretty much want to avoid the professional travelers and the weekend crowd. For example, a lot of management consultants travel Monday and go home on Thursday, and you don't really want to travel on those dates because you're going to run into a giant wave of people. You also have weekend travelers that are going on Friday and coming back on Sunday. That means that if you travel Tuesday, Wednesday, or Saturday, and obviously during less busy times on the other days, then that's going to be fine. As insane as it sounds, we do kind of follow this ourselves. On the most recent Hawaii trip, we left on Wednesday and got back Tuesday morning. Pretty much the same idea of Houston in April where we left on Thursday and got back on Tuesday. Salt Lake was Wednesday to Monday, and Monday ended up being a mess. Ironically, those are also the cheaper days to travel because there's less demand, so prices are lower. Time of day also plays a role, so there's the morning business traveler rush, usually a calm around lunch, and then the after work travelers, and then they come again. So if you're going to the lounge at 7 a.m., then there's going to be people because everyone else is also at the airport then, and they also have access. If you travel on busy days during busy times, then it doesn't matter, there's going to be people. Also factor in that a lot of employers will cover lounge memberships or annual fees for travel cards. It pretty much means that all business travelers have lounge access by default, and you're fighting all those people. Put another way, if you're driving during rush hour, it doesn't matter if the city adds another lane or two, there's still going to be traffic. I wouldn't be surprised if they do eventually raise the annual fee, but I think we do have a year or two. End of the day, these are tools, and as long as you can get value during the time you have them and come out ahead, then it's worth getting. I've happily bought cameras that I used, that I benefited from, but I still knew that they were eventually going to get deprecated and be useless because there'll be better ones. Again, if you are debating the Venture X, I'd recommend running your numbers for your situation. I'll link it down below or Google Ask Sebby Venture X worth it and it should pop up. If you want to learn about cards, whether by Capital One or some other issuer, and you want to support the channel, we do have links on the website, asksebby.com, and down below in the description box. If you made it to this point, leave a camera emoji in the comments down below and I'll try to heart it and also respond. 3 questions. Number 1, what are your thoughts on the change? And do you benefit or do you lose value? Number 2, if you were switching to a competitor, which card are you going to? Number 3, and kind of curious, do you have multiple premium cards or is the Venture X your go-to and one option? Or how do you think about that? Let me know and everyone else know in the comments down below. Big favorite, thumbs up, share this, but otherwise hope you liked it. See you next time.